Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good afternoon, everyone. Back with us in the 12th VCP. So this time we will discuss about trips. First of all, I'm going to talk about the Gypsy. Roma or Gypsies originated in the Punjab region of northern India as a nomadic people and entered Europe between the 8th and 10th century CE. They were called Gypsies because Europeans mistakenly believed they came from Egypt. This minority is made up of distinct group called tribe or nation. Most of the Roma in Germany and the countries occupied by Germany during World War II belong to the Sinti and Roma family groupings. Both groups spoke dialects of a common language, called Romani, based on Sanskrit, the classical language of India. The term Roma has come to include both the Sinti and Roma groupings. So some Roma prefer being known as Gypsies, some Roma are Christian, and some are Muslim, having converted during the course of their migration through Persia, Asia Minor, and the Balkans. For centuries, Roma were scourged and persecuted across Europe. Zigeuner, the German word of gypsy, derived from a Greek root meaning untouchable. Roma or gypsy in pre-war Europe. Many Roma traditionally worked as craftsmen and were blacksmiths, cobblers, tinsmiths, horse dealers, and tool makers. Others were performers such as musicians, circus, animal trainer, and dancer. By the There were also a number of Romanian shopkeepers. Some Roma, such as those employed in the German postal service, were civil servants. The number of truly nomadic Roma was on the decline or in many places in the early 1900s, although many so-called sedentary Roma often moved seasonally depending on their occupation. Roma lived in Europe. About half of all European Roma live in Eastern Europe, especially in the Soviet Union and Romania. Hungary, Yugoslavia, and Bulgaria also had large Romani communities. Our gypsies are stupid. They could at least be crafty, but they are not. They are just primitive, and they manage to irritate the entire society, which is already watching them closely. They run through the country and Europe barefoot, slimy, and dirty, wearing clothes which are more likely to disgust you than make you feel sorry for them. Begging, soliciting, and being organized will never bring them any advantages. Romanian media received his declaration almost aesthetically. It was quoted in most mainstream Romanian newspapers and was considered the political declaration of the week. In Romanian politics, Mr. Voicu usually advocates the rights of Romania's Romani minority. Voicu, a member and representative of the Romani community, makes a degrading public statement. Romanian society harbors one of the worst cases of social stigma in Europe. The direct result is the reluctance and, in most cases, refusal of important public personalities of Romani origin to declare their membership or link the Romanian or Romani minority. Important Romanian member of the Romanian government, writer, professor, doctor, sport and celebrities, and singer refuse to avoid discussion targeting their origin. Udah? Okay, Algi, it's your turn. What are you going to tell us? Algi,
Okay, thank you, Aradita. So now I'm gonna talk about the Indians is a tribe from American. So the Indians were the first North American settlers to come from Asia more than 20,000 years ago. Because they followed game animals, they wandered through the Bering Strait, or formerly an isthmus, now separating the easternmost point of the Asian continent and the westernmost point of the Americas. Gradually, they settled and developed into various tribes. Over the centuries, they built an orderly society. In the 16th century, Europeans arrived in North America for the first time, thinking they had arrived in India. They mistakenly called the natives Indians. Therefore, the native peoples of the Americas are known by the name Indian, as the English word for Indian. Because the immigrants from Europe wanted land, the Indians felt threatened. They also fought against these European Indian tribesmen, fought the United States government who tried to evict them. But in the end, they lost and were transferred to a reservation, a special area for them to live in. Until now, there are still many Indian tribes who live there. The native peoples of North America were made up of many tribes. They generally live from hunting, fishing, and farming. Famous tribes include the Cheyenne, Comanche, the Don Sioux, who live on the Great Plains, Apache, Navajo, and Pueblo, which live in the Southwest, and Iroquois, Huron, and Cherokee live in the East, and Miccosuk who live in the Everglades, Florida region. The Indians used bows and arrows, knives, and clubs, spears as weapons. Many also carried tomahawks. In the 16th century, they got requests from traders in Europe. Indians are skilled craftsmen. They make beautiful clothes and headdresses. A pair of moccasins made of cloth leather and decorated with leather straps and various colored beads. 1.5 million US Indians live on their self-managed reservation. The Navajo Reservoir, for example, covers an area of 6 million in Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. Recently, several Indian tribes on the northwest coast of the Pacific managed to protest and have regained their land. Before the Europeans arrived, the Indians occupied most of what is now the US. The Indian tribes are grouped into 6 geographic areas. Europe settlement gradually pushed the Indian tribes west and southwest. Finally, in 1890, They settled on several scattered reservoirs. So there is a story about the Indians tribes of the American. So thank you.
Okay, guys. Now from me is I'm gonna explain about indigenous from Australian is Aborigine tribe, indigenous population, Aborigine and indigenous population in 2016, an estimate 798 and 365 Aborigine and Torres Strait Islanders people were in Australian, representing 3% of the total Australian population. ABS 218, the indigenous population is projected to reach about 1.1 million people by 2031. Among the indigenous population in 216, 91% identified as being of Aboriginal origin, and estimate 700, 700 people. Then 5% identified as being a Torres Strait Islander origin, 3,000 people. Then for 4% were about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander origin, 3,000 people. Indigenous identification. The Australian government defines Indigenous Australians as people who are Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander descent, identify as being an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander origin, are accepted as such is the communities in which they live or have lived. In the most data collection, a people is considered to be indigenous if they identified themselves or were identified by another household member as being or of Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander origin for a few data collection information or acceptance of a person as being indigenous by an indigenous committee may also be required. The indigenous population have relative young age structure. In 2016, a median age was 32, 23, compared with 37.9 for non-indigenous Australian. Among indigenous Australian, 34% were aged under 15, compared with 18 for non-indigenous Australian, and 4% were aged 75 and over, compared with 16 for non-indigenous Australian. Indigenous Australians are more likely live in urban or regional area than remote area of the indigenous population. At June 2016, about 4 in 5 live in major city, interregional or other regional area is 8100%, 81% or about 1600 600% people. About 1 in 5 live in remote or very remote area. The relative geographic distribution of indigenous population differ to the non-indigenous population at June 20, 2016. Nearly an non-indigenous Australian live on the non-remote area, compared with living 1.5% living in remote or very remote areas. The percentage of the total Australian population who are indigenous was higher on the remote area. In remote area, 18% of the population were engineers. What were nearly half of the population is very remote area. In the cooperation is in non-remote area. 2.7% of the population were engineers. Then there is from me. Yeah, there is all about Aborigine tribe. Thank you guys. Bye bye.